Yo, welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. And we are here to talk about the tears that's taking place in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you guys again for listening. My name is Just Richards, and we are here to talk about all the good things that are happening in sports around the world. And the biggest thing that we need to talk about is the fact that the Knicks keep putting BTA to a lot of these teams going down. Yes, the Knicks are heading to their second conference finals in as many years. That was bad. We were recording this on Sunday night. We were actually watching the Spurs take on the Minnesota Timberwolves after Wemby got ejected in one of the most surprising ways I think I've seen a star player get ejected in a while. I don't think I can remember the last time I've seen a guy of Wemby's caliber get ejected from a playoff game, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that we're here to talk about the Knicks Sixers series that went almost the complete opposite way that I predicted, even though I was right in the end. And the fact that the Knicks did win this series, not in the way that I thought they were going to do, because they beat the hell out of these guys. I mean, they beat the hell out of the Sixers. They've won every single closeout game in the series so far by 30 plus points. And even though I said that they won by 30 plus points in each of these closeout games, somehow that is not actually show how bad they beat these teams by. I mean, like Tyler Cole got real minutes in these series. Like when your bench guys, not your bench guys like your rotation bench guys, I'm talking about the dudes that are basically dapping up the towel boy at the end of the bench, are getting full on fourth quarter minutes. You know something's happening with the team. They are definitely going to be the favorites now to win the conference. Doesn't really matter what's going to happen between the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Detroit Pistons. Detroit is either going to be up 3-1 or their series will be tied by the time you guys are listening to this podcast. And one of the things I want to flash back and remember too is I remember I used to listen to Chris Candy when he was on ESPN New York, and how he would explain how wearing the Knicks jersey was the heaviest jersey to wear in the NBA, because you had an insane fan base. Because if you watch any video of any Knicks celebration over the last couple of weeks, you see these people are crazy. And the only thing that can truly stop, New York from staying as a city are New Yorkers, and specifically Knicks fans, tearing this city apart. They have those level of fans that are intense, that are crazy, that want more, but pretty much no history. Like, as someone who is a fan, I am also very realistic about how good and bad this franchise is. They are virtually have the same resume as a franchise as like the Houston Rockets. Like, they've been to the finals a few times. They're, I believe, 2-4 in the finals. Lost to the Lakers, beat the Lakers twice, lost to the Rockets, lost to the Spurs. Like, they don't have this great history of getting to the finals, beating these teams, winning this big game. And yet this is by far the biggest, the best era of basketball the Knicks have had since the 90s. And if they make the finals, which they are the favorites to get to the finals, they will probably surpass that in so many ways, just because while those Knicks teams were winning, and I wasn't necessarily around during those times, or at least I wasn't consciously watching basketball at those points, they were not beating the shit out of teams like the way they are doing right now. And the frustrating thing about all this is that if those boys were wearing green and black jerseys, the idea that they were going to get upset by the Hawks, or that the Sixers, shout out to Tim Bontemps, that the Sixers were the favorites in this series is fucking lunacy. And things like that, quotes like that, erode the confidence of fans in the media, right? There's one thing to say, hey, I think the Sixers have a chance to win this series. Things like that aren't the things that get fans upset or really just people irritated. It's almost the level of disrespect that comes into play of what we've seen before. Because what's going to happen now is going to be some excuse about the Sixers. They weren't healthy, yada, yada, yada. And then that somehow Cleveland and Detroit are going to be better after they go through this 7-game series, and the Knicks rested for how many days it's going to be between Sunday, the last game they played, and whenever game 1 of the conference finals is going to be. It is the best time to watch Knicks basketball right now, because they have a legitimate chance not to make the finals, but to win the championship. There is no evidence outside of the jerseys that they wear and what you think of Karl-Anthony Towns as the reasons to think they cannot win the championship. Okay? We're going to have a similar situation if they're able to get to the finals and play, whether it's the Spurs or OKC, that a lot of people are probably going to pick either of those Western Conference teams in a sweep, because we have somehow convinced ourselves that the Western Conference is just this so far superior conference than the Eastern conferences. And there's nothing in the numbers that proves that that's true. Nothing. Okay. It is going to be fascinating to see if this team is able to complete that journey, finish the job, and get everything done that a lot of people had expectations for them to do so and be able to complete the mission rather. I want to shift focus to the Sixers and specifically to Embiid. He's the only MVP to never get to the NBA Finals. Actually, that's not true. He's only the third MVP, I believe, or second MVP who's never gotten to the NBA Finals. Steve Nash never got to the Finals. He's the only MVP to never get to a conference finals. He's lost in this round 8 times. He's lost to this Knicks team 2 of the last 3 years, once in the first, this time in the second round. And I am just fundamentally curious about how Philly fans feel about him, because I felt like in the beginning of his time with the Sixers, when he was hurt to start, but was able to kind of grow and gradually become a superstar, one of the best players in the league, a lot of their foils and failures were always directed to other people, right? Ben Simmons, the coach, whichever coach it could have been at the time, Doc Rivers, Nick Nurse, Markelle Fultz, the front office, like just everyone got so much blame besides this guy. And there has been nothing more to show that this guy is just flat out not a winning basketball player. The amount of things that he says, honestly, at this point is just embarrassing. Like, I don't know which quote was worse from the last 2 games that he played. Was it I think that the NBA wants the Knicks to win, that's why they took more free throws, even though they intentionally fouled Mitchell Robinson 8 times. That's why the free throw disparity was so high. Or the fact that he took a page out of Jaylen Brown's book, went on the microphone and said, yeah, I know that we basically got our backs blown in, but I had a successful year because I was healthy. Like, it's the ability for some guys to be that tone deaf is almost astounding at this point. And it's been my thing about the Sixers for really since last year, is that they are in by far the worst situation that any NBA team has. Because if you're in the NBA, the one or two things you at least want to be is, okay, we either are going for a championship. Okay, we have young players who we think we can develop into like either assets to get better players in, or we just want to keep growing organically with the guys that we have, or you just want to be ass, right? You want to be in those 3 spots because you're either, again, competing or you're in the, drinking the cocaine of hope. Okay. I don't think you could actually drink cocaine. Actually, you probably can. Neither here nor there. The Sixers find themselves in a quandary of the fact that they have good young talent. They have Maxey. They have VJ Etchcom. Those guys are good. And I think VJ Etchcom is going to be a very, 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 very good player. But they have the 2 worst contracts in the league. Now, you can argue, and Paul George played pretty well in this series, that maybe he isn't the 2nd worst contract in the league. Maybe he's closer to like 6 or 7, but it's not great when he's still got 2 more years left of the money that he's making. The biggest problem is the fact that the Sixers have Joel Embiid for an estimated $57 million next season. Then he's at $62 million a year after that. And then he has a player option at $67 million. Someone was saying that Joel Embiid might retire. And I had to outwardly chuckle. I go, tell me someone who is going to willingly give up. I mean, my math isn't great, but close to $150 million. That's not happening. And in here lies the problem. He has a completely untradeable contract. Completely. He can't get moved. No owner is buying him out for that amount of money. So they're just stuck. Okay. They are the worst version of what the Bulls used to be, right? They are completely landlocked into being at best the 6th seed, at worst a 9th, 10th seed, with absolutely no way to get better. None. Because he is the vortex of their problems. And they can't move him. By and large part, the reason why they lost this series was the fact that they couldn't guard the Knicks. And if you watch the game, every time the Knicks needed to get a bucket, it was on him. They put him in pick and rolls. They got him in drop coverage. He can't move. And you would think for a guy who is so accomplished as he is, there'll be like a level of sympathy for a guy. But when you combine that, the foul baiting, the comments, and the flagrant fouls, he is the most unlikable guy in the league, bar none. And it's finally here. And I don't know if, I think fans have essentially turned on him at this point, Philly fans, because I think the rest of them have finally realized, oh, this is just done. There's nothing that they can do anymore with this. they're just locked into being a hard round 2 exit every year, and they're not buying the product that the team's selling. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm more surprised that there were actually Philly fans in the building. If people can find it, there is a woman doing local news for Philadelphia, whatever the affiliate, the ABC affiliate of Philadelphia is. She is literally, not kidding you, caught in the rapture of Knicks fans, the rapture of them. They engulf her as a person. I don't know if she survived the scrum. Like, the cameraman had to eventually tilt up because there were so many people around her. It looked like she was being taken by the monsoon. That is what this team is giving them. Why, if you're a Sixers fan, why would you go? Why would you watch? They just got beat the hell out of. Oh, I mean, there really is nowhere else to go for that team. But hey, man, out to the people who sold their tickets. I hope they at least made some money on the back end of that. Pivoting a bit off the court to kind of like some media discussion. Draymond Green's had a really weird week. I think I just saw him. I didn't watch the whole clip of it. They were making fun of Kevin Hart, but I think he's at Kevin Hart's roast, or the roast of Kevin Hart for some reason. If you guys don't know, see what's happened is relatively recently, Draymond has randomly picked a fight with Austin Reeves. Alyssa, I don't know if that made the cut when Alyssa was on this pod earlier this week. Essentially, that Draymond Green, which he always does, takes things the wrong way, and started arguing with him about something. I don't really know. And then you had the situation where he basically took a shot at Charles Barkley about him being like, I don't want to be you when you're at the Rock, when you were at basically the end of your career. And the thing with Draymond, I think the thing that what he's missing is, I always say this a lot, is the thing that makes you great a lot of times, Draymond Green's a very quotable guy, is ultimately your downfall, right? It's the thing I kind of always say a lot of times about being in the league, right? And like kind of the duality of being an asshole, right? A lot of people are assholes, right? A lot of people are mean people. But you essentially get away with that a lot of times by, frankly, being good at your job. If you are good at your job, a lot of things slide, you know? And Draymond Green has been a great player. Let me not say great. He's been a very good player for a very, very long time in the NBA. But now he's clearly trying to pivot over to do media. And I mean, it's no secret. It very much seems like he's trying to take Charles Barkley's job. Charles Barkley is in his 60s now. I don't know if Charles Barkley's in his 70s. I'll look that up right now. He is, he's 63 years old. Yes, Charles Barkley is 63 years old. So not as old as I thought. But I mean, how many more years does Barkley want to keep doing this? That's up to him. I think he's probably talked about retirement how many times before. But like, the guy who's best suited position to take his spot is Charles Barkley. I mean, rather Draymond Green. And what he did on Inside the NBA, which has made himself look like an ass. And the reason why is because Draymond Green is extremely insecure. And that's okay. There's a lot of people that are really insecure. The issue with Draymond is that he has never found the balance of being the likable asshole. Because Barkley says a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of people get on him. But the reason why that show works and why that show is funny and that show is still like people will watch, especially casual NBA fans, I think by and large part, the like NBA fan has changed a lot as far as like what they want. I think a lot more of like fans per se want more X's and O's and more like silo conversations about their specific teams. But I think in large part, the casual fans who are just checking on and just there to watch, they find Charles to be hilarious, right? Same thing with Shaq, Ernie, and Kenny. But the reason why that show works is because they can make fun of Chuck. That whole time where you watch the show, they made fun of Chuck all the time. Never winning the finals, never won anything. I remember when Kenny poured champagne on Chuck because he never won anything after they won the Emmy, I believe. Like, he always takes things in stride and he's able to bounce things back off. Even the arguments that Shaq and Chuck have are hilarious. The churros, like those things are just objectively funny. But if Draymond's not essentially on the other end of the joke, like the guy giving it to the other person, he can't take it. I.e. what's happening with Austin Rivers, which mind you, he didn't make a joke about him, right? But it's the same thing with Jordan Poole when he punched him because he called him a backpack. Same reason why he keeps throwing hissy fits at Rudy Gobert. It's the same reason now he says that Steve Kerr held him back because he thought he could have like a Kevin Durant level career. Like, the level of insanity that goes through his mind, even in his apology to what he said to Charles, he then tried to spin it around to say like, oh, well, Kenny didn't hear what I said, and so that's why it wasn't funny. Ernie didn't laugh either. Like, it wasn't funny because he's not a funny guy. He's just a dick. And that's ultimately why whenever this Warriors thing is done, whenever he's done, he's going to go away. He'll be around as far as like, he'll still tweet something out. He'll still, have the pod. There will still be moments of relevancy, but as far as like him becoming like a media darling or a star or him to replace Barkley, it's never going to happen because ultimately people don't like him, right? And that's really the thing that I go back to is like, who is he serving? Take Warriors fans out of it. Who does he serve? Who's clamoring for more of this guy? The insight's not there. He's still giving the most hottie of hot takes of this guy just doesn't win. It's like, okay, great depth there. He's not very funny, and he just comes across as a dick. So I don't see who's the driving force of who wants more Draymond Green in their life except for Draymond Green. So until he's able to recalibrate that and to bring the asshole down and likability up, he's just never going to become the type of player who I think, or rather, he's never going to be the type of player that's going to easily transition into a media career and say whatever he wants to become like a thought leader, which I think is what he actually wants to become. Also, another thing that happened on Sunday, as I still watch this Spurs game, and Minnesota looks like they are about to freak this game because the Spurs currently have an 8-point lead, and Wemby has been ejected from a game from a very weird elbow that's taken place. But talking about the lottery that has happened, the Wizards won the lottery, and shout out to them because the Wizards have been just the Wizards for the longest time ever since John Wall left. I think it's really cool, though, that the Wizards have almost embraced John Wall back because, and again, people will laugh because if you look up the Wizards' history, the Wizards outside of the years where they were the Bullets have not been good. Their best years as a franchise were when John Wall was there. They made it to the second round when John Wall was there. They haven't made it to the second round since. I don't think they've made the playoffs since they got rid of John Wall, actually. And it seems like he's kind of came back because I know he did a lot for the city of Washington. If you look at a lot of things that he was still doing, even after he was traded, I know he had like a food drive and I think a toy drive a lot of times during the holiday seasons. I'm frankly just happy that he's back in the good graces with the organization. They even had that whole John Wall day earlier this year for him when he was calling a game for them. And I think all that stuff is very cool for like someone who I don't think John Wall's going to make the Hall of Fame. But impacting your community, I think really does get underrated by professional sports athletes. And listen, like you're paid to win games. So I'm not here to all the things that happened with John Wall, but he was absolutely a guy that meant a lot to that city during the time that he was there. So he was the representative for the Wizards who won the lottery, but not really sure who they're going to pick. This is an odd draft as the Timberwolves just came within 3. Man, Ant is really fucking good. But the Wizards are in an interesting spot, similar to that of the Hawks a couple years ago, the year after the Wembanyama draft, but in a different way, in a sense that there's so many guys in this draft that I think everyone thinks are going to be very, very good, versus that draft where it was like no one knew who was going to be good in that draft. But you still have the number 1 pick, and I don't think it's going to be an easy decision on who you're going to take. Right now, the betting favorite is AJ DeBonsa. He's a minus 500 by DraftKings, or sorry, FanDuel. Keep looking for that sponsorship. Followed by Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, Caleb Williams, and Darius Acuff Jr. I'm going to spend a couple of seconds on Peterson because I think he's a guy that can fall, to be honest, because I don't exactly know how you can take him 2. Not because I think he's a bad player. In the games that I watch, and we will, when we get closer to draft season, try and have an NBA draft expert on so we can have some more questions about this. But like the guy was like hurt at various times during the season with a muscle cramping thing that never really got revealed. And so now he is kind of in somewhat of a quagmire because as teams work him out, get his medicals and do all stuff. Now he's so good, maybe there's a team he doesn't want to go to. We'll see when we get closer to draft season. But like, how do you take a guy that high in the draft and you literally have no idea what the hell happened to his like season? It'd be one thing if he like tore his ACL, right? Or broke a shoulder, like he had like an injury and it's like, okay, he was out this amount of time, he was injured. The question would be like, can he maintain an NBA throughout a NBA regular season, which is essentially double the amount of games you're going to play in college. This injury just kind of came and went. And it was like he was dehydrated and not dehydrated. And so I don't know how he's going to go number 1 or 2, especially with the amount of guys that kind of seem like they're all in the same tier. And it goes back to what I said before, where as much as teams do all this stuff to lose and they got to get in the top half of the draft, they got to do all this stuff. You just don't know. I mean, you look at the draft last year with Cooper Flag, 4 of those guys look awesome, like awesome, right? You got Knipple, you got Flag, you got VJ, like all those guys look like they're going to be like real legitimate, like all-star, all NBA caliber players. And this feels like that same type of draft. Maybe the Banza isn't looked at as good as how Flag was looked at as a year ago, but it is a draft in which not getting the number 1 pick is not going to be the worst thing in the world, because I don't think you're going to necessarily be stuck with any of these guys coming out. But the biggest loser of this draft, though, has to be looked at as the Pacers and the Nets. I mean, the Pacers basically traded the 5th overall pick in the draft and Benedict Mathurin. Whether or not the Clippers re-sign him or not, it will be up in the air for Zubac. It got so bad that the GM basically had to come out and apologize to them, right? The one thing we just spoke about it earlier before, you got to sell fans something. And if you're not selling them wins, you got to sell them that copium. And that's the biggest thing that these fans get at the end. That's why the draft is so popular. That's why every time you watch the NFL draft, I think I don't know if they beat the finals or they beat the first round of the playoffs, but they had more views for essentially just telling you who the rookies were going to be on your team in the first round. Because why? Because it feeds hope. It feels everything. And the reason why those are so big is that it doesn't matter if it's the first pick or the second pick. That one player could potentially be the missing piece in your team, advancing in the postseason, winning the Super Bowl, whatever it might be. And that's why people watch drafts. And the fact that the Pacers basically just said, nah, screw it, we're just not going to have that pick is devastating to them. Just devastating. And I didn't understand that trade at the time. I think Zubac is a fine player. I think he unfortunately goes into the category of an analytical marvel. And so much that we watch the analytics so much that we forget to watch him play basketball. He's a good basketball player. Like, he's very good. He is not worth the 5th pick in a very good draft. Good. And the Pacers, I think, even though they didn't get this pick now, will be considered one of the teams when Halliburton comes back. Well, let's see what else they do in the offseason. It's probably one of the teams that could win the Eastern Conference next season. But that trade did not help them in any way. They try to have their cake and eat it too, because they could have gotten the top 4 pick. They still would have gotten their pick. If they fell, I believe, outside the top 10, they would have gotten their pick. So basically, they had to jump in the top 4, and that just didn't happen for them. And the Nets fall in the draft. I believe this is like the 3rd consecutive year the Nets have fallen in the draft. This is more than enough of the gods telling you that you have to move away. But I think the most interesting part of the draft that will come to play is actually what will happen with the 5th pick, which is the Clippers pick, and whether or not this is finally the time for them to move on from Kawhi Leonard. We kind of talked about this before. There are just going to be several teams that are just going to be not in the Giannis conversation because there's only one Giannis. He can't go to every single team. And if you're the Clippers, you now have the 5th pick in the draft. Kawhi looked awesome. He played most of the season. He's going to probably finish 2nd team All-NBA if he doesn't finish maybe 3rd team All-NBA this year. And you have the ability to get off his money. And again, who is the guy to go for to get him? That would just be a very fascinating thing. Like, if you look at, again, the Clippers, is Boston make the sense to just swap him, maybe get a younger version of him and get Jaylen Brown and give them Kawhi Leonard? Do you send him to Atlanta? Do you keep him in LA but just send him to the Lakers? I think that the Clippers have to finally move off of Kawhi so that this thing can just end. Like, whatever era, whatever fake thing that they are in, kind of a version of what the Philadelphia Sixers are in, but people actually want their best player and no one wants the Sixers best player. But this has to be time for him to get up out of there, because it's not going to be anything more than what what the Clippers already have, which is just being the Sixers of the Western Conference rather. But all right, that's all the time that we have for you guys today. Thank you guys again for listening to the show. It would mean so much to me if you guys leave a review and a 5-star rating for us. I really appreciate all that. And if you're not able to do so, then I have to believe that you actually thought Joel Embiid was going to make his first conference finals in his career. Thank you guys again for listening. It's the Men Who Cry podcast. Peace out.